There's a clip circulating right now that has NFL fans split down the middle, and once you see it, you'll understand why. It's a single play, fourth down, high leverage, everything on the line, and yet what unfolds doesn't look like what people expect from a professional offense. The quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, drops back and almost immediately pressure is in his face. No time, no space, no chance. The play blows up before it ever has a chance to develop. That clip alone has sparked one of the most heated debates surrounding the Cleveland Browns this season. Some fans are calling it simple execution failure. Others are asking harder questions about effort, communication, and whether what we're watching is just bad football or something deeper. To be clear, there is no confirmed evidence of intentional wrongdoing, no investigation, no official claim, but the optics of the play have people talking, and once that conversation starts, it doesn't stay quiet. What makes this moment different is context. This isn't an isolated snap. It's happening against the backdrop of a season where protection issues have followed Shedeur week after week. Hits piling up, plays breaking down early, moments where the quarterback seems to be fighting uphill just to get through his progressions. And when fans start stacking clips instead of reacting to one, narratives form fast. Online, speculation has taken over. Some believe the offensive line is simply overwhelmed. Others believe coaching and structure are failing the quarterback. And then there are those who think the situation reflects a deeper disconnect inside the building. Again, these are fan theories, not facts. But they exist because silence and repetition create space for interpretation. The question isn't whether Shedeur made the right read on that play. The question is why so many people watched the same clip and came away feeling uneasy. Because when a fourth down snap looks that broken, the discussion stops being about play design and starts becoming about trust. And once trust erodes, every snap after that gets watched differently. That's why this clip matters. Not because it proves anything on its own, but because it's forcing fans to ask a question the Browns didn't expect to hear this loudly. Is this just a team struggling, or a situation spiraling faster than anyone wants to admit? And the answer might depend on what the tape shows next. It only took one snap for this debate to explode. Late in the game, fourth down, momentum hanging by a thread, the Cleveland Browns line up knowing exactly what's at stake. This is the kind of moment where execution matters more than play design, where every assignment has to be clean. The ball is snapped, Shedeur Sanders drops back, and within seconds the play is over. What fans immediately latched onto wasn't just the sack or the failed conversion. It was how fast everything collapsed. And more importantly, why? On replay, viewers noticed a breakdown on the edge involving Cam Robinson that didn't look like a typical loss at the line of scrimmage. There was no prolonged hand fight, no clear counter move by the defender, just pressure arriving almost untouched. That's what sent social media into overdrive. Some fans argue it was a missed assignment or a protection call gone wrong. Others believe Robinson expected help that never came. Those explanations happen all the time in football, and they're reasonable. But the reason this play keeps getting replayed is because, to many viewers, the body language felt off. The engagement didn't look urgent. The recovery didn't look desperate. And on fourth down, that stood out. To be clear, this is where speculation begins, not fact. There is no confirmation that anyone intentionally failed on the play. No report, no statement, no evidence of deliberate wrongdoing. What exists is a clip that looks strange to fans who are used to seeing linemen at least attempt to slow pressure in must-convert situations. And perception, fair or not, drives conversation. Context matters too. This wasn't against a struggling defense. This came against the Buffalo Bills, one of the league's most aggressive units. Pressure is expected, but even against elite defenses, fans expect visible effort, hands on defenders, bodies in the lane, some form of resistance. When that doesn't appear on screen, people start asking questions. And that's exactly what happened here. The clip spread because it didn't look like a quarterback getting beaten by a great play. It looked like a play that never had a chance. That distinction matters, because once fans believe a play was dead on arrival, they stop blaming the quarterback and start examining everything around him. This one snap didn't create the controversy by itself, but it became the spark, the moment people circled and said, "Wait, what just happened there?" And once that question gets asked loudly enough, it forces a deeper look, not just at one lineman, but at the pattern fans believe they've been seeing all season long. Once that fourth down clip started circulating, the reaction wasn't unified. It split sharply into two very different camps. On one side, you had fans arguing this was a classic football breakdown, a missed assignment, a protection call that didn't get communicated correctly, the kind of thing that happens when an offense is struggling to stay on the same page. From that perspective, the blame isn't on one player, it's on timing, scheme, and cohesion. And honestly, that explanation makes sense. NFL protections are complex, especially against aggressive fronts like the Buffalo Bills, and one misread can make an entire play look broken. But the other side of the argument is where things get uncomfortable. A growing number of fans aren't focused on assignment, they're focused on effort. They're replaying the clip in slow motion and pointing to body language, the lack of urgency off the snap, the absence of a recovery attempt once the play breaks down. In their eyes, even a missed assignment should still come with visible desperation, especially on fourth down. That's where speculation starts to creep in. Online, phrases like non-effort and checked out began trending not as proven claims but as emotional reactions. Fans compared the play to other fourth down snaps around the league, where linemen at least throw a shoulder, get a hand on a defender, or try to disrupt timing. When they didn't see that here, it fueled frustration, and frustration turns into suspicion fast. To be very clear, none of this is confirmed fact. There is no evidence that Cam Robinson intentionally avoided his responsibility. No report has stated that. No coach has suggested it. Everything beyond the film itself lives squarely in the realm of fan interpretation. But interpretation matters when enough people see the same thing and react the same way. What intensified the reaction was who took the hit. Shedeur Sanders absorbed the consequence. Another drive ending abruptly, another moment added to his stat line, another clip that critics can point to without context. Fans sympathetic to Shedeur argue that when protection fails visibly, quarterbacks wear the blame unfairly. And that belief has amplified emotions around this play more than most. This is how narratives form in real time. Not because something has been proven, but because trust starts slipping. Fans stop asking, "What went wrong?" and start asking, "Why does this keep happening?" And once that question becomes louder than the answers, every future breakdown gets viewed through a more suspicious lens. Whether this play was miscommunication, poor execution, or something else entirely is still unknown. But what's undeniable is this. The debate itself says more about the current state of the Browns than the snap ever could. Because when fans argue effort instead of assignment, it's a sign that confidence in the system, not just the players, is starting to crack. That fourth down clip didn't explode in isolation. It landed on top of something fans feel they've been watching all season. When supporters of the Cleveland Browns talk about a pattern, they're not pointing to one bad snap or one missed block. They're pointing to repetition, pressure arriving early, pockets collapsing before routes develop, drives stalling in moments where timing and protection matter most. And when the same issues show up week after week, fans stop chalking it up to coincidence. For many, the frustration starts with how often Shedeur Sanders is forced to improvise, scrambling earlier than designed, resetting his feet instead of stepping into throws, abandoning progressions because the pocket never fully forms. None of that shows up cleanly in box scores, but it's obvious on tape, and it's exhausting to watch when it keeps repeating. Online discussions suggest fans aren't just upset about sacks, they're upset about how the sacks happen. Free rushers, missed handoffs in protection, defenders coming through gaps untouched. Again, this does not prove intent. These are the kinds of breakdowns that can stem from poor communication, unfamiliarity, or coaching adjustments that never quite click. But when they don't get corrected over time, suspicion grows. And that's where the word pattern becomes dangerous. Because once fans believe something is systemic, they stop isolating mistakes. They connect dots. They rewind earlier games. They compare similar situations, third and long, fourth down attempts, red zone snaps, and start asking why the outcomes feel so familiar. Whether fair or not, that perception shapes how every future play is viewed. Coaching naturally enters the conversation at that point. Some fans have questioned whether the offensive structure under Kevin Stefanski is putting players in position to succeed. Others argue the scheme is fine, but execution is. Still others believe frequent changes and adjustments have prevented the offense from developing cohesion. None of these viewpoints are proven, but they reflect growing uncertainty about direction. What makes this pattern discussion louder is contrast. Fans point to moments where Shedeur shows composure, accuracy, and mobility, flashes that suggest growth, followed immediately by plays where protection collapses and momentum disappears. That whiplash fuels the belief that development is being interrupted, not accelerated. And that's the heart of the concern. When a young quarterback shows progress but the environment doesn't stabilize around him, fans fear stagnation. Not because the player can't improve, but because the conditions aren't allowing consistency. Over time, that fear turns into frustration, and frustration turns into scrutiny. Whether this pattern is real or simply the product of a struggling offense is still up for debate. But what's undeniable is this: fans aren't reacting to one play anymore. They're reacting to a season's worth of moments that feel unresolved. And until those issues visibly improve, every breakdown, fair or not, will continue to be viewed as part of something bigger. As the frustration builds, the spotlight inevitably shifts from players to the people designing the environment. And that's where coaching decisions enter the conversation. For many fans, the questions surrounding the Cleveland Browns offense aren't about play-calling creativity. They're about process, how players are prepared, how responsibilities are communicated, and how quickly recurring issues are corrected or not corrected at all. That's why Kevin Stefanski has found himself under increasing scrutiny. To be clear, Stefanski is widely respected around the league. A proven coach, a system builder, someone who has had success before. But even strong resumes don't shield coaches from criticism when on-field results and optics start drifting apart. Fans aren't questioning his intelligence. They're questioning whether the structure around the offense is matching the moment. One of the most discussed topics online has been player usage and preparation. Reports and commentary have suggested that early in the season, reps and chemistry were inconsistent. Again, nothing here is confirmed wrongdoing. These are public discussions and fan interpretations, not established facts. But when a young quarterback like Shedeur Sanders is developing in real time, even small disruptions in preparation can feel magnified. Fans point to moments where protections appear misaligned, or where adjustments don't seem to carry over week to week. That leads to a natural question: is the message getting through? Or is the offense trying to evolve while still stabilizing its foundation? Some argue that the scheme itself isn't the issue. They believe the design can work, but only if execution is sharp and trust is high. Others believe frequent changes, combined with pressure-heavy game situations, have made it harder for the offense to settle into rhythm. Both viewpoints exist, and neither has been definitively proven right or wrong. What fuels the debate is repetition. When the same types of breakdowns appear multiple times, fans stop blaming individuals and start examining leadership, not out of malice, but out of logic. In the NFL, recurring problems are usually structural before they're personal. That doesn't mean Stefanski has failed. It means expectations are rising. Fans want to see visible corrections, cleaner protection schemes, fewer moments where quarterbacks are left exposed in high-leverage situations. They want reassurance that lessons are being applied, not just discussed behind closed doors. And here's the key point. None of this is about tearing down a coach. It's about accountability in moments that define trust. Because when players appear unsure and fans feel uneasy, coaching decisions naturally move to the center of the conversation, whether anyone inside the building wants them there or not. And as this season unfolds, how those decisions translate onto the field may ultimately shape how this entire situation is remembered. At some point, every viral moment needs to be slowed down, not to defend anyone, but to separate what the tape shows from what people believe it means. That's exactly where this conversation sits right now. On the surface, the fourth down play involving Shedeur Sanders looks disastrous. Pressure comes fast, the play collapses, the drive ends, and for fans already frustrated with the offense, that single snap feels like confirmation of everything they've been thinking. But football is rarely as simple as one freeze frame. What actually happened on the play? From a technical standpoint, several plausible explanations exist, none of which require intent. Protection schemes can break down when there's a missed call, a late shift by the defense, or confusion over who's responsible for the edge. Sometimes linemen expect help that never arrives. Sometimes quarterbacks and linemen aren't on the same page about the hot read. All of that happens in the NFL, even to good teams. That's the reality side of the discussion. The other side is what fans are claiming, and that's where speculation takes over. Online, some believe the lack of visible engagement from Cam Robinson signals effort issues. Others believe it reflects a player unsure of his assignment rather than unwilling to execute it. Important distinction. Confusion and non-effort can look similar on tape, especially to viewers without access to the play call. There is no verified report, no coach statement, and no league action suggesting deliberate wrongdoing. None. Everything beyond the video itself is interpretation. That matters because in the NFL, intent is a serious claim and one that requires proof, not frustration. Zooming out makes this even clearer. Against the Buffalo Bills, multiple plays broke down in similar ways: tipped passes, hurried throws, receivers not finishing catches. Those moments often get blamed on quarterbacks because they show up on stat sheets. But anyone who's watched football long enough knows those outcomes usually involve multiple failures at once. That's why analysts tend to slow the conversation down. They look at whether the quarterback made the right read, whether the ball placement was reasonable, whether the timing made sense given the pressure. And in many of these plays, including this one, the conclusion hasn't been the quarterback failed. It's been the play never stabilized. And that's a critical difference. Fans aren't wrong for being upset, but it's also dangerous to let emotion turn uncertainty into accusation. Because once speculation hardens into belief, it stops being about improvement and starts being about blame. Right now, the truth sits in between. The play was bad, the optics were worse, but the gap between what happened and what's being claimed is wide. And until more information comes out, it's a gap filled with assumptions, not facts. And that distinction may determine whether this moment becomes a lesson or a label that sticks far longer than it should. What's made this conversation impossible to ignore isn't just fan reaction. It's that analysts who break down film for a living are starting to land on the same conclusions. Across post-game shows, podcasts, and tape reviews, the message has been consistent. Whatever you think about the results, The situation around Shedeur Sanders is making life far harder than it needs to be. Several analysts have pointed out that when they isolate individual plays, Shedeur's process often looks sound. His footwork under pressure, his willingness to stand in the pocket, his ability to escape without immediately bailing backward. Those are not traits of a quarterback panicking. They're traits of someone trying to execute within a collapsing structure. What keeps coming up is timing. Analysts note that on many snaps, routes simply don't have time to develop. The pocket doesn't form cleanly enough for second or third reads to matter. That forces quick decisions and improvisation. And while improvisation can create highlights, it also creates risk. When those risks don't pay off, the quarterback wears the criticism. But analysts are careful to separate decision-making from circumstance. They've pointed out tipped balls at the line of scrimmage, passes hitting receivers, hands that don't get secured, free rushers appearing almost immediately off the edge. None of those are exclusive quarterback failures, yet they all show up in the same box score column. That disconnect is why film reviewers keep stressing context. What's especially telling is how often analysts praise Shedeur's response to adversity. Instead of shrinking after a bad series, he comes back aggressive but controlled. Instead of forcing hero throws every snap, he mixes in checkdowns and throwaways. Analysts consistently describe that as growth, not regression. And growth matters more than raw numbers at this stage. There's also been discussion about athleticism. Some analysts admitted they underestimated Shedeur's pocket strength and mobility coming into the season. On tape, he's shown the ability to sidestep pressure, reset his base, and still deliver catchable balls. That's not flashy scrambling, that's functional movement. And functional movement keeps quarterbacks alive when protection breaks down. Importantly, analysts haven't claimed the offense is doomed. What they've said is more nuanced. Improvement is possible, but only if the environment stabilizes. Cleaner protections, better communication, fewer mental errors in high-leverage situations. These aren't dramatic changes, they're foundational ones. And that's why this matters. When analysts independently arrive at the same assessment, that the quarterback is showing traits worth investing in, but the structure around him is inconsistent, it reframes the entire conversation. It stops being about whether Shedeur has it, and starts being about whether the team is helping him show it consistently. Fans may debate emotion, social media may amplify extremes, but analysts live in the details. And right now, the details are telling a story that's far more complicated and far more patient than the loudest narratives would have you believe. When the noise fades and the emotions cool, the situation surrounding Shedeur Sanders comes down to one uncomfortable reality. This story is no longer just about one bad play, one viral clip, or one frustrating loss. It's about trust. Trust between a quarterback and his protection. Trust between players and coaching. Trust between an organization and its long-term plan. And right now, that trust feels fragile inside the Cleveland Browns ecosystem, at least from the outside looking in. Nothing that's been discussed proves intent. There is no confirmed sabotage, no investigation, no official accusation, but what has been proven is inconsistency. Protection breakdowns that repeat, high-leverage moments that fall apart too quickly, development that feels interrupted instead of supported. And when those patterns stack up, fans don't just react, they question. That's the dangerous part for any franchise. Because quarterbacks don't fail in isolation. They fail when environments don't stabilize, when the foundation shifts too often, when accountability feels uneven. History has shown that the league doesn't remember context nearly as well as it remembers outcomes. If things go wrong, the quarterback's name carries the weight, even when the problem started elsewhere. That's why this moment matters more than the play itself. Shedeur has shown flashes that evaluators respect: composure under pressure, Functional mobility, willingness to stand in and deliver. Those traits don't disappear overnight, but they can get buried if the structure around them doesn't improve. And that's the crossroads Cleveland is approaching. The lingering question isn't whether fans overreacted. It's whether the organization recognizes how quickly perception hardens in the NFL and how hard it is to reverse once it does. Because every unresolved issue adds fuel to speculation. Every silent week allows narratives to grow, and every breakdown reinforces doubts that could have been addressed earlier. For Shedeur, the path forward is clear but unforgiving. Keep playing, keep improving, keep responding without excuses. That part is within his control. For the Browns, the challenge is bigger. They must decide whether they're truly committed to building clarity and protection around their quarterback, or whether they're comfortable letting questions linger and hopping talent alone smooths over structural cracks. Because in this league, hope is never enough. And the longer the answers stay unclear, the louder that lingering question becomes, not just among fans, but eventually inside front offices across the NFL watching closely, waiting to see whether this situation stabilizes or becomes another cautionary tale everyone pretends they didn't see coming.